Okay, so I've been playing around with custom collisions in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, and I finally found a system that actually works. So if there's one thing that you know about collisions in Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, is creating custom collisions is nearly impossible. I mean, I've searched every corner of the web, and there's just no decent tutorial. I was following some of the Skyrim tutorials and playing around with them a bit and see if I could get it to work, and fortunately I have managed. So here I have a club, and obviously this is all custom meshes, as you can see. Every mesh has its own sort of, it's custom shaped, so trying to do a collision sphere is practically impossible up until now. I don't know if other developers know about this, but obviously I thought I should make a video just so anyone who's getting into sort of custom meshes, things like that, will know how to create the collisions for them, since it's not an easy task. Now, there's one piece of software you will need to get is 3ds Max. I have the 2016 version. The reason why you need that is because there is a plugin for it. However, there is a 2015 to 2018, obviously I'll put both these links in the description. You'll see, at least from the screenshots anyway, that this looks very similar. So make sure you have a copy of 3ds Max. I have a 2016 for a while, so obviously that works for me. Now, once you've created your mesh, it can be in 3ds Max, Maya, whatever it be. You just want to export it to a format that 3ds Max can import it with. So I've gone with OBJ. Obviously FBX works as well, and obviously any Max files, anything like that, they'll also work. So let's just create a new project here so I can show you the method. So you want to import your mesh. In this case, we're going to use the metal railings for this tutorial, and just hit import. And don't worry if you don't have any prior experience with 3ds Max. I'll just show you how to basically parrot fashion it, because obviously I'm not very good with 3ds Max either. I've only used it a few times, but nonetheless I'll show you how to create collisions. So we have our mesh here. Now you can import your collision mesh, or you can create it just simply by duplicating the mesh. So just right click on it and hit clone, make it as a copy, and I'm just going to call it col, just so I don't make any mistakes. Now this will be our collision file. This is our just the regular mesh that we'll see. Now, with this tool installed, if it doesn't show up, you'll obviously need to restart 3ds Max, or just make sure you've installed it correctly. There's plenty of tutorial information in here. Excuse me, I didn't mean to open that. It's relatively straightforward. It's just drag and drop a bunch of files into the 3ds Max plugin folder. And now what we want to do is create a node that will basically use this collision file. So come over to this tab here called Modify. Come down to Modify List, and make sure you have your collision selected. You don't want to mix them up. And then select BHK Rigid Body. And what this does is it tells the software that we've basically turned this into a collision. Now within the collision data you can select its material. In this case it's metal bar, so I'm going to pick metal. And set this to strips. Now for 3 in New Vegas, strips works. I'm not sure about Skyrim. Obviously I'm not covering that because one tutorial I was watching said to set it to convex, but as you can see, this restricts us to basically a single mesh. So we're just going to set it to strips. Strips works perfectly fine. And that's metal. And now what we're going to do is create a node that will then use this. So come over to the Create tab, go to Helpers, which is this one right here. Just hover your mouse over it and you'll see. And then you want to select NIF tools. It will either be down here or somewhere in the middle. Just select NIF, and then select BHK Rigid Body, and then just click anywhere on the mesh. It doesn't matter where this node is, as long as it's on the scene. You'll tell because it'll come up over here, BHK Rigid Body 001. And now what we want to do is add the collision file. So we're going to jump back over to Modify. So we're going to modify this rigid body. Make sure you have it selected. Click Add, and then come back over here and then select the collision file. So as you can see, the collision mesh will be our collision right here. Again, just make sure that's set to whatever the material is. Don't worry too much about this. The only one I'd really worry about is the this layer type. Static for static objects, clutter for anything that can move about, and then weapon for any weapon objects. And you can sort of work out which one's which. Generally speaking, if it's a static, set to static. If it can move, set to clutter. And if it's a weapon, set to weapon. So I'm going to go with static. And that's pretty much it. This is ready to be exported and sent over to NIF, where you can sort of work on a few things, because I do believe it messes about with your materials a bit, but don't worry. So just go to click on that little icon there, export, and then obviously export it to Club Metal Railings, which is what this is. But I've already done that. I made a mistake in an earlier video, so I've had to come back. But what I will have to do is show you which options to select actually, so I will have to go through it again. Okay, so by default, because it's a Skyrim plugin, the game will be Skyrim. As you can see, we've got all these games here. Set to Fallout New Vegas, and that way I get the version and user data right. Make sure you've got these two nodes selected, and leave these as they are. Just pretty much leave everything as it is. Just make sure you've got collision and hidden nodes, because I believe the BHK rigid body is a hidden node. And then set this to BS fade node, and then hit export. I'm not going to do that since I already have. And what we're going to do is open up NifScope. It doesn't matter what version you got, as long as you can work on your model. And there are a few things you'll have to do. Firstly, just make sure your textures are set up correctly. For me, it tended to keep playing around with the textures, so I had to reset these to where they are. And then in here, just make sure these ones are selected: specular, environment mapping, remappable textures, and Z buffer test. If you've got an alpha texture, obviously make sure you check that, but this is metal, so it's not. And then obviously you'll have to add the alpha node. Leave this as it is. Obviously if you want to play around with these, you can do. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. And what you want to do to make sure that the collision has exported, come all the way down here to the nitri strips data and click on this vertices, and as long as you see a lot of numbers like I do here, that means that the vertices for the collision have been exported. So I can see this is perfectly fine, zero issues with it. I'm now going to save it and jump back into the GEC. Okay, so let's jump into New Vegas and have a look and see if our mesh is there. Okay, so now that we're in the club, we can see that the mesh has appeared. If it doesn't, just make sure that your materials are set up correctly. Alternatively, if you end up with a crash, just make sure that you've selected strips when you've exported, and just double check you've done everything as I've done it in the tutorial, because if you export the collision incorrectly, the game doesn't know what to do and it will basically crash. Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, this texture is a bit shiny. That's just because there's no normal. But as you can see here, the collision's fully functional, and I'm sort of banging my head on the metal bars at the moment. Yeah, so that's it. So these glass railings, for instance, they have no collision, so that's why I can walk through them. Obviously, these will be the next mesh I need to work on. So that's pretty much it. So if you have any problems or you get stuck, just let me know. Just leave a comment. But if you found this video sort of helpful, then please leave a like. Maybe share it with people that you know could make use of it. And that's pretty much everything. So, bye.